Hi. I'm Nico, or N.Sloane, whichever you prefer. Um, Welcome to She, Me, Her, We, and continuing from where I left off with the 27 Club. I know it's been a while, and I completely apologize for the long, way prolonged absence. And while I'm not back um, currently, I'm not back for a steady time yet because my home is still under construction. Um, I am back in the sense that I have a space to work in right now. Literally, just this area in my home looks like a livable area. And so, as long as I have a workable area, I'm going to try to continue working from where I left off. And so, there's that. um, Also, I've had some medical issues that I've been having to take care of. So, that's been the channel has been taking a back burner to literally everything else going on in my life, and I apologize for that. So now we get into the real nitty gritty, and I have been looking forward to this for so long. I have felt so guilty, and I have wanted to come on and even maybe do a partial or a slow, small part of the story, but we have reached I want to say number 3. Let's see here. Yes, number 3 on our 27 Club list. Robert Johnson, who lived from 1911 to 1938. Now, Robert Johnson was dubbed the King of the Delta Blues. When he started out, though, it was really rough going. He looked up to people like Charlie Patton and Son House, who were like, oh, dude, they were such major players in the blues scene, man. Charlie Patton pretty much was like the godfather of the Delta Blues, and he taught so many other players, and all these other players who amounted to something in their lives and actually became successful musicians. They all attributed part of their success to Charlie Patton, who taught them, and to Son House, who encouraged them and brought them up as proteges in the during the blues era, when blues was first coming out as a whole big blues explosion. And so Robert Johnson, being of that time in those days, he looked up to them. And one day, he went to, I guess, one of the juke joints, local juke joints, and he was trying to play alongside Charlie Patton and Son House. And Son House actually turned around and told him, "Put that guitar down, you're driving people nuts." Exact quote. And Robert Johnson was so embarrassed that he left and continued to practice so that way he could become good and be able to share a stage with them. But he seemed to be getting nowhere. Practice was just not doing it for him. And I understand that because as a guitar player myself, I cannot tell you the amount of hours that I spend practicing, and I get nowhere sometimes. I mean, some days it doesn't matter how hard you practice or like where your fingers are going or how hard you try. Some days you just don't get it, and it just doesn't happen for you. And I completely understand his pain. I truly do. So, okay, how did he become the King of the Delta Blues, you may ask? Well, there's a lot of stories about that. First, I'm going to tell you the myth. And here's the myth. Robert Johnson walked off into the fields, and he came to a crossroads where he met a big black man. And they spoke about the blues. And the man took Robert Johnson's guitar and tuned it, added a string, and as he handed it back to him, Robert Johnson made a pact with him so that he can play the blues better than anyone else. He just wanted to be able to play that guitar and really impress everyone. And so the deal was struck. He could become the best blues man ever. Boom. Done. The man was supposedly the devil. And when he went back to town and he came up, picked up the guitar and started playing, all of a sudden, boom, everyone was just so amazed. It was the best music they had ever heard. And then, when he was 27 years old, he died. And that is the tragic story of how Robert Johnson became the king of the Delta Blues. How much of it is true? Well, not long after being laughed off stage and embarrassed by Son House, Robert Johnson did in fact take a hiatus. And he did travel for a while. There was about 6 months that he was absolutely unaccounted for. During that time, I can only imagine that he practiced the hell out of that guitar. And he did, as a point of fact, come back with a guitar that had one more string to it. Now, plenty of documentaries have been made about his pact with the devil, the Crossroads. Crossroads is actually a really good documentary. If you are going to watch a documentary about Robert Johnson, I would highly suggest Crossroads, which was made in 1986. Me and the Devil Blues, which was amazing. And actually, Netflix, hold on. Netflix remastered The Devil at the Crossroads in 2019, and so that one is actually a pretty good one to watch. There are several of them, and don't worry, I will link as many of them down into the description as I can when I'm done here. Now, okay, Robert Johnson's personal life. When he came back after those 6 months, because nobody knows, there's absolutely no documentation of where he might have been or how or what he was doing during that time. There's nothing. We do know that when he came back and he was playing like a god, a blues god, he started kind of living that rock star lifestyle, you know? He had his little groupies, and he didn't care if they were married. You know, what was it to him? He was here, he was playing a one-night stand, and he claimed a one-night stand, you know? That's just kind of how it went for him. Most musicians. Sorry about that. All right, most musicians, even of that time, they live a very free life, and some hedonism comes into play in that. And when people appreciate your art as they do, especially as it comes and pertains to music, people are so emotionally moved by your art when you're a musician that it just moves everything. It moves your spirit, it moves your soul, it moves your body, and it can, at times, turn you on. And so when your groupies are turned on and you're there and you're willing, who isn't really? When you're getting that kind of a stroke to the ego, you got 40 women a night trying to throw their panties at you in your face, and you'd have to be as strong as a freaking oak not to cave every once in a while and take one home. Robert Johnson clearly wasn't an oak. And, you know, that kind of got him in a little bit of trouble now and again. And I say this because while Robert Johnson's death certificate reads as complications of syphilis, I would say rumor has it, but I think it's way more than just rumor. I mean, it's become lore, but I think this lore came from somewhere of more substance than just rumor. It seems that Robert Johnson died after drinking a poisoned bottle of whiskey. Now, some people say he was poisoned by an ex-lover, which could be. I mean, lovers have been so jealous in the past as to do so, and that's not entirely uncommon. Sure, it can make sense. I could see that making sense. Why not? Another, uh, and I think it's a more plausible and more believable possibility is the jealous husband of a lover, because that made more sense. Um, his friend, Robert Johnson's friend, David Honeyboy Edwards, and he was a contemporary of Johnson's. He's believed to have performed with him during his last days just before his death, and he said that Johnson had been poisoned and that he was probably targeted by a vengeful by the vengeful husband of one of his mistresses. This seems more plausible, not just because it's coming from one of his contemporaries, but because I believe that his contemporaries, seeing as how he was playing a lot during this time, his contemporaries would have kind of noticed the behavior of the people around him, his mistresses, their husbands, that sort of thing. And that jealousy would have been so palpable that they would have known, well, the people around him would have known, and it would have been more than just rumor or conjecture. It would have been a rumor based in fact, but it would have been something that maybe couldn't have been proven because they didn't have evidence, and they likely didn't do an autopsy because the plantation owner, from the plantation upon which he died, he wrote the note on the back of the death certificate that says the cause was complications of syphilis. I suppose that the plantation owner probably just didn't want to have to get an autopsy done. He figured if he could just write it off, syphilis, boom, done, wash my hands, it's over with. Because if not, poison would have an autopsy and an investigation, and I'm sure the plantation owner really didn't want to have to get into all of that. Syphilis was fine enough, just wash your hands, move along, and everyone goes on with their happy day. I think that's sad, terrible. But, I mean, that's kind of life, isn't it? Not that it's a great thing, it's a terrible thing, but it's kind of what happens. Well, kind of what happened back then, anyway. But, okay, so, all of that being said, Robert Johnson lived long enough to record some of his songs, and then I believe let's see here, he became known as the King of the Delta Blues singers, his music expanding in influence to the point that rock stars of the greatest magnitude, Rolling Stones, Bob Dylan, Jack White, Eric Clapton, the Allman Brothers, John Cougar Mellencamp, they all sang his praises and have recorded his songs. Let me see. Well, he has, I mean, even though they're huge names in their own right, even though these guys all sing his praises and look up to him and have recorded his music, he didn't just influence them. I mean, you can ask almost any major player in the guitar scene, and they will all at some point rattling off their influences at some point say Robert Johnson in that list of influences, because he was a big influence and because he did do amazing things. He changed the face of the Delta Blues as they knew it back then. It became something different. It morphed and changed because of Robert Johnson. And that's kind of why I was so interested in him, because his music literally changed the face of music within the time that he was living. And I love that. I love pioneers in music. I love pioneers in art, but music specifically, because music moves me so much and it has such a hold on my soul, you know? It's guys like this, guys like Robert Johnson, that I wanted to grow up to become like. And in all honesty, if my guitar playing is anything to go by, it's never going to happen. Not in this lifetime, possibly not the next. Maybe with enough practice, the one afterwards. um, that being said, I am so happy to have finally been able to talk about Robert Johnson. I will list so many different links for you down below so that you can check him out. Not just his music. I want to list a couple of different things. There's a foundation, a Robert Johnson Foundation that's still around. Keeps his not only his music available to audiences who did not weren't around when he was around, and who can find him now and learn from his music. I think that's wonderful. There are so many others. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Biography.com has a page on him, so I'm going to link everything down below for you, because I just think he's such a fascinating read. He really is. And in the next video, we're going to be covering Nat Jaffe. He's a piano player and a jazz musician. So I am so glad that I was able to do this with you today, and I'm hoping that maybe within the next week or so I'll be able to put up another video for you guys. And yeah, so I hope that we get to talk again soon. See you. Bye.